A long time ago, shortly after World War II, the trains were still running between Newbury and Winchester. The station called Highclere was in the parish of Burghclere. We were getting back to normal after all the restrictions of wartime. I remember it all so well. I remember the many buses. We relied on them because petrol was still rationed and there were not so many cars about. Burghclere and Newtown between them cover a wide area. This is Yeoman's Lane on Burghclere Common. Half a mile further north, we reach Newtown with its attractive church and the houses nearby on Newtown Hill. What I remember best, perhaps, are the folk, the true heart of village life. And where better a place to meet them than in the Swan at Newtown, which hasn't changed much over the years. About 3 miles away, back at Burghclere, Earlston Manor Farm, which was involved in a war of a different era, the Civil War, when Roundheads and Cavaliers had a skirmish, so it is said, before the Battle of Newbury. I don't suppose it has changed much over the years either. The old barn at Mr. Gent's farm, and reflected in the pond opposite, Old Burghclere Church, a fine 12th century building with lingering touches of late Norman. Coming up Queen's Hill, Burghclere, who other than Trevor Jackson, the postman? Later on, he took to driving a van. These were the early days. Milking time down Wells Street way. Henry Palmer, who delivered our milk. And his neighbour, Mrs. Green. Alec Hutchins ran the post office at Newtown, amongst many other activities. During the war, a German bomb landed on the pigsty they had then, unhappily for the pigs of the time. And I remember the village school. Mr. Culling, the headmaster, was a kindly man, but he kept firm discipline at all times.
Oh yes, he was very strict, there's no doubt about that. We certainly enjoyed our PT. Really a good excuse to be out of the classroom, doing maths and such like. I can tell you quite a bit about some of these people. Surprisingly, quite a few of them still live around the area. There's Michael Heaver, or his younger brother. Of course, this is where the old people's bungalows are now, the Elkington Close. Michael Lansley and Mary Watlin. Surprising how many of them still live around the area. Well, she was a lovely lady, Mrs. Culling, and that's Mrs. Taylor, one of the teachers. Mary again, looking like Miss Muffet. I don't remember that lad. And there's Monty. Used to love him when he came in the classroom. That's Mrs. Taylor's daughter. She was seconded to Burghclere and used to travel up every day on the train from Sutton, Scotland.
An important moment in the day. Food was still rationed, and the school lunch was in addition to the ration. Today's menu: potatoes, beans and rissoles.
This young lady's living in America. There's Anne Brown, and there's myself. And Neville Horn. He still lives in the village.
Monty the cat was named after the famous field marshal of the time. Everyone's garden is very special. As Rudyard Kipling wrote, "The glory of the garden lies in more than meets the eye." Now here's a man very concerned about his fruit trees. There was a chap called Bentley, who opened his garden to the public from time to time. What a pleasure that was, visiting Quarry Wood. Best dahlias, best sweet peas, marrows, potatoes and raspberry jam. All there to be seen and admired, for this was the flower show and sports day that took place in August on the Burghclere cricket ground. And the energetic youngsters show their athletic skill.
Oh, that looks like the egg and spoon race. We were all very enthusiastic at the sports in those days, but children aren't quite so keen in latter years. It was a good family day out, that's, you know, everybody participated.
And the fancy dress parade. The Honourable Mrs. Scott was an excellent organiser.
As my sister and myself, we were newsagents and sweet shop in that fancy dress parade. Mervyn Anstey and Ronald Locke again, the two dinner boys that we saw.
The Sea Cadets, drums and bugles from Newbury. The fruit tree man obviously never got to the flower show. I remember cricket matches on Sunday afternoons and delicious teas prepared by wives and friends. At the end of the summer, the Harvest Festival, when the church was filled with quite a lot of that which had been safely gathered in. Burghclere Church has long since lost its spire, and probably most of the congregation of those distant days, when we all had a good old gossip after morning service. There were other sad services too, when we remembered our relations and friends who were only recently lost in the war, and indeed in the war before that. Sir Robert Saunby used to lay the wreath. He was second in command to Bomber Harris a few years earlier. My father, Charles Legard, the rector, conducted the ceremony. There was a parish tea. I think it was Mothering Sunday, in the village hall. Mr. and Mrs. Annals were amongst the oldest inhabitants. He used to work in the old Burghclere lime kilns early in the century. Henry Game, the fruit tree man, now has wasps to contend with. That was quite a day at Reeves Cottage. Ah yes, it was many years ago when the trains ran between Winchester and Newbury. Mr. Lansley, the signalman, helped them on their way. Though Burghclere and Newtown life carries on as busily as before, I don't think it's really been quite the same since the train has disappeared. Sadly, forever.